Go for it.
Okay. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting will be recorded. The agenda will be recorded and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Public Access Cable YouTube channel within the next 24 hours. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and those that are reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent of permitted by open meeting law. And with that, the meeting is open. We can start. So I forwarded an email, a document today that was what Chris created and sent to us. I don't know if everybody, it was late this afternoon. I don't know if everybody had opportunity to go over the document.
Do you take a roll call of attendance before we get into that?
Thank you, Chris. Okay, roll call, Karen Menard,
Here.
Colleen,
Here.
Pat,
Here.
and Chris.
Here.
Sullivan. All right, and I'm here on the Lockwood. Okay, so did people have time? And I know it was late. Did we have time to go over the Chris Ruth's comments about the schematic design as presented to us?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
No.
Pat, no.
I have not, no.
Okay, Chris Sullivan.
I skimmed it, yeah, before I left work.
Okay. He has 23 items. So this is an opportunity to talk over this since Chris Ruth is here. Maybe I'll read them, or we can have the clerk read them all out loud. And if we have anything to discuss, maybe we can discuss it right after it's read. And if not, we can just keep reading. And the goal of that would be sort of an exercise of, are we okay with these comments? Do we have any feedback on the comments? Any questions to Chris? And whatever we do, I'm going to annotate on my notes, and our feedback and our comments will be sent to WOLA. But Chris is the expert in the house of looking at construction documents. And I figured that would be a good way to get feedback from an expert. And then we can give it to WOLA. After that, we can then talk if we have any feedback about the presentation since it's been a week. So is that a good plan with the group?
Mhm.
Okay, Karen, did
Sounds
you
good.
shake? Okay, Karen, you shook your head as a no.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Karen, would you like to read it for us since English is,
Sure.
no, you don't? Okay, thank you.
All right, so first was, do we have a plan for the T-ball field? We shouldn't take away their field with no plan for them to play. Do you want me to pause for comments after this, Anna?
Yeah, so I have comments about that. And if anyone else have comments, please just say, I got a comment. Because I'm hoping we won't have comments on all that. Chris Ruth, we need to move forward with the project. And I think we need to sit down with baseball and figure out what the long-term plan is for them. Last year, the Parks Commission put in a request for the redesign of McNally. We approached the Water District to get them to maybe take that. They have land there that we can maybe use it. And we also have looked into attaching, that is about a half an acre attached McNally that we believe we can probably be donated to us. So we can't stop the project because of T-ball, but it is not our goal to leave them homeless. The goal is to, probably the next phase is to sit down and talk with them and figure out what we're gonna do until we have all the pieces in place. That's my feedback. I don't know if anybody else has anything else.
I
I
think
do.
we're on record as saying we are not going to do anything with the T-ball field until we have a resolution on that. I believe that's kind of where we last left it. So I just want to make sure that we stand by, which I think is kind of what you're alluding to, Anna, that, we're looking for solutions. And there probably will have to be some, there may have to be a compromise or to change the location and so forth or what have you. But I think as a commission, I think when we've discussed this in the past, we are on record as saying we're not, that's kind of the last piece that we would look at there would be to remove that T-ball field, but without, without having a plan for another place.
Yeah,
My only comment with that,
and-
Chris,
Hold on, Chris, Ruth, Chris Sullivan, yes, part of the plan, it might be we may have an interim plan. And then we might have a long-term plan. And I think the interim plan is something we need to work with the Little League. The long-term plan, was try to get McNally, because we have land there, we have land available. So yes, there will be an interim plan, there'll be a long-term plan, but we need to sit down with them and talk.
so part of my concern came from, I got a complaint early on from the T-ball folks that they felt they were being left out. And my other concern is that we haven't looked at it since we've adjusted the skate park. But right now, when they build the skate park, they're taking down part of that T-ball fence. So I just, as long as everyone's on record that we're working with the T-ball, I'm comfortable with that. I just want to make sure, what's the point of building baseball fields if the T-ball kids can't play and have more baseball players later on?
For the record, Ruth, my kids played T-ball on a football field in Somerville.
Well, we
That's
probably
not what
shouldn't
I
send the
wish,
kids to Somerville.
and that's not what I wish for our kids. But like when the high school was being built, right? Like our kids, a lot of our youth programs had to move out of town.
Yep.
The kids, they were playing, I think it was field hockey at Marshall. So, we need to work on figuring out the solution. But yeah,
Perfect. That's all. I just want to make sure it wasn't getting lost in the mix.
okay. Chris Sullivan, are you satisfied with the conversation?
Chris Sullivan, I muted you because I was just about to text you. I muted you because your background noise keeps coming in. So you'll need to.
No, I'm sorry. I thought I was muted again.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think that we're, again, we're on record as trying to, come to a solution with them on that front before we making sure they have some sort of home. And,
Yeah.
I think it's a mixed bag. I mean, there's our entire parks department is baseball fields and softball fields. So, I mean, I think that, there may have to be some compromise if we figure out a solution, or again, McNally and so forth in that area that we can figure out and put a spot there where we put a T-ball field in. But, I think that I just want to emphasize that we were on record as saying that.
Yeah. I
Perfect.
think we're still there and we're going to do that. Okay.
I think that's really all I was looking for, was just that. So,
Okay, Karen.
We should do anything we can to extend the distance of the field. Foul pole should be 325 if possible. And if we can't get to 325, we should try to change the geometry of the outfield so it gets deeper quickly. See the attached photos.
Okay.
so just to elaborate on that a little, one of the photos I pulled was directly from MLB.com, which showed the 325. The other one is actually a pretty cool overlay that shows all the major league fields and how the shapes are. They work with what they got, obviously, and we have to do the same. Just one of the complaints I heard is at 300, it's similar to the Leominster Babe Ruth field. And when the teams play over there, it's almost like a home run derby because they just crush the ball out. So anything we could do would be appreciated.
Okay. Any comments?
I do. So I don't know. So here's a tough spot for me, right? Because again, I'm not looking to cut anybody out. I just want to make sure that we are accommodating our residents' needs. And right now our residents' needs go up through high school baseball. And as far as I understand, and from everything that I have researched, the field that WOLA has meets the high school requirements for a high school size field. I don't want to make a field bigger and lose other pieces of our park, including walkways that might go around there or, that sort of thing. My feeling is that if it could have been bigger, WOLA probably would have already have made it bigger.
So I understand
don't-
your comments
Chris,
100%, Karen.
Chris, Ruth, before you can explain your once let's create a little route way of working. So Karen will read and you can make comments about it, but then we need to have the commission discuss. So we
Okay.
know where everybody is, and then we can come back to you, just so it's a nice flow.
Okay.
Okay, after hearing Karen, do we have anyone else comment?
Well, I was thinking along the same lines, even last week when it came up, that there was probably a reason that they had made it 300. But so to Karen's point, I wouldn't want to lose something else that takes away from the integrity of the walking trails or anything else. But it's interesting what Chris said about maybe a different shape. Like I do wonder, she said she was going to go back and look at it and see if they could do that. So I feel like she already said she was going to look at this, but I wonder, if they could change the shape or something that wouldn't impact anything else. But yeah, I hate to see some other part of the park get, set aside to make that longer. But I do understand, not wanting just home runs all the time, but
Right.
I don't know. I kind of agree with Karen.
Fair. Okay. Chris or Pat, Chris Sullivan or Pat, do you guys have any comments on this?
Yeah, I think a similar sentiment to what Colleen and Karen have said. Like, we don't want to sacrifice anything else. I mean, keeping in mind, we're not a major league ballpark, like it's high school baseball for the most part. And I understand we have some summer baseball there with adults that are playing there, but it isn't a major league, park. But if Wola can figure out a way to expand, a little bit without sacrificing something else that people can enjoy in the park, then I'm all for that as well. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pat, do you have any comments on that?
No, I'm in the same
Page, everybody.
with
Okay.
everybody else. Yeah. Yep.
All right. Thank you, Pat. So what I saw on this is, when we were designing the conceptual design, we tried to get the 350 feet outfield to accommodate all the current users. I think this is a good comment to have, and I think where everybody stands, where it's actually what I have said to the skate park, which is the skate park. We're gonna see they need a little extra space for their stormwater, and we're trying to work with them in order to accommodate their stormwater needs with our needs, so that way they're not taking. But we, it's really what I told Anthony and Greg, which was, we cannot compromise other park features for the skate park. Like, we got to make it. So I think what I saw when Chris gave us the design, the different shapes, it was examples of baseball fields out there. They're good. And I didn't see it as making a major league. So I think giving this information to Wola and adding the comment of, we would love to accommodate all the current users and make the best possible baseball field for everyone, but we don't want to compromise any other park feature, which seems to be pretty much what everybody said. Is that good? I'll make that into my note.
Yeah, I'd be curious to look at other
comments.
ball fields in the area, like other high school level town ball fields in the area. Like, what are their
Okay.
dimensions and geometries and so forth, things like that we can compare.
Okay, so I'll send Wola that comment, and I can take it upon myself to look up different baseball fields in the area.
I do have a couple comments to add, if that's okay.
Yes, it will always be okay. Let's just wait for the commission to have their comments, make sure we're wrapped up, and then, so otherwise we just have a back and forth. And
No, I thought everyone was done.
Yeah.
That's all.
So is everyone okay with that approach? We'll search for other geometries for high school. I will submit this comment, Chris's comment, and add that we'd love to accommodate all the current users to the best possible way, but we are careful about not compromising other park features. Okay, Chris Ruth, go for it.
So I agree with not compromising any features. I would, although Wola's doing a great job so far, I would caution the commission that saying engineers know what they're doing and they get it right. I've been doing this for about 20 years and engineers get it wrong every day. So sometimes you have to push to get them to be creative. On top of that, even if we can get one pole a little longer, it's not everything has to be to 325. It's let's see what we can stretch. We understand it's not a major league field, but we're spending $5 million to build a field. We want to get it as, we're not getting money to go back ever before any of us retire. And I understand that, residents are first, but I'd also not like discount a league that's been paying to play and maintain that field for 40 years. Just because the coach may not be a resident of town, they've still been taking care of the field for 40 years.
And I think we all agree with that, Chris. And I think the comments that we made, it's aligned with that and is aligned with
Yep.
the skate park, that we are holding them to the same standards. We're trying to we're trying to accommodate everybody, but we are holding everyone to the same standards. Okay. Karen, please.
One
you can-
other
Oh,
comment too. So, and I'm all for, I don't mean to say, the major league comment. So the maps that you provided were all major league field. That's why I asked the question about other town fields, so we have a comparable sort of scenario. But beyond that, I'm on record too as saying that we need open space in this town, and if we can expand the outfield at the ball field and we get extended foul lines and so forth as well, I think that opens things up for us to be able to use that field as a multi-purpose field as well, to add some rectangular space in there. So the more space that's there that can be fit in there, all for it, because it just means it can also be used by other by other sports as well, whether it's parks and rec programs or lacrosse or soccer or field hockey or whatever. I think the more, if we can find the space without sacrificing stuff, I'm definitely all for it. So.
Perfect. Okay. All right, Karen, number 3.
Let's see. Of course, nothing wants to open. Okay, so he's just asking to confirm the size of the storage building, the footprints. That baseball would like to keep the 10 by 14 storage building on the home dugout third base side, as it works while being attached. And they would prefer not to share with softball. Softball can use the shed attached to the bathroom. Sorry, I'm pulling up the plan at the same time.
Yep,
Okay.
it's, the current one, Karen, is shown next to the 2 little bathrooms on the side. And softball right now is using the bottom of the snack shack and it's full. So
Yeah, it also needs to be cleaned out if you didn't know. Yeah.
They
they
actually
actually
did-
did, I don't know if you've been in, they've cleaned it out recently.
Oh, okay, good, because it was pretty gnarly.
Yes.
So then-
Chris, I have a question for you while Karen's doing this. So I hear you saying baseball would like that, the storage being attached to the home dugout. Has softball expressed a similar wish?
I haven't got back from softball yet. Any
Okay.
comments? It's different use groups and different people have keys and items have gone missing. And if they're separated, it may make life easier. And if they're
Sure.
not, we would have to go bigger on the other one and maybe even do the other one with 2 bay doors if we had to. So, there's 2 separate sections.
That's fair, but my question is, with softball, I think it would be important to have I'm thinking I like conform things that match. If our goal is to have dugouts attached to storage attached to dugouts because it's better, wouldn't that be better for all the users?
It could work just as well, yeah, and match both fields. I don't think anyone would have an issue with that. I think having options is best for WOLA as they need to shift things around. Giving them some options will help them
Okay,
tweak
but-
things.
And as a question for you, have you asked softball and when I say softball, I mean the Little League and the high school coaches, if they have a preference?
I did not ask if they had a preference if it was attached or not. I just know the high school and the Phillies like it,
Okay.
what they have attached. They actually said if we could move what they had now, they'd be thrilled. But unfortunately, I
Okay.
don't think that's realistic.
Okay, so, all right. Okay, I'll be happy to reach out to the 2 softball users. All right, any other questions, comments on this one?
I will. So I think that I truly feel like what we do for one, we should do for the other. So if we're putting in storage next to the dugouts. If we're going to request them to consider putting storage next to the dugouts of the 90-foot, I think the same should hold true for the softball team. Just because the location of it makes it ideal.
Yeah, I think it actually worked really well. So
So.
Okay.
that would be
All right.
my-
Any other comment about this one particular item?
I'll
Okay,
just agree with Karen and what you said, Anna.
okay,
It
So-
should match if at all possible.
okay. So what I'm gonna, my action item for this one is going to be reach out to both the high school softball coach and the Little League, and a couple Little League softball coaches, and ask them and confirm with them that that is a preferred way to have a ride there versus outside. And maybe the shed can be used for other types of storage. I'm not saying, I think we should keep the storage as much as possible, because I know storage,
I love storage. So
right? Okay. All right. If you want to move on to the next, Karen, thank you.
Sure. We need a storage spot for stone dust for the teams to touch up the fields.
Oh, I think you skipped.
Oh, sorry. Yep, I did. I skipped something. I apologize. We need a gate in the fence on the third base side that's roughly 20 feet wide to move the temporary backstop into place. They also need a place to store the backstop. It's on wheels, so it could roll out into the open area behind the dugout across the walking path.
I'm not sure if the commission has seen what I'm talking about there, but it's a big portable backstop that they use during practice and warm up, so they don't damage other backstop and that type of stuff.
Okay. I know what you're talking about because remember my son played baseball all the way through high school. My question is, and thinking about how the park is and the distance we're gonna have on of the path that's going to be going around there, and what the space that we have in between the softball and the baseball field, wouldn't it be easier to store that by first base?
I was just thinking there was so much going on there that my thought was kind of, oh, I think the box they have drawn on the left side of the page there is where that septic would go. So it's kind of just roll it out on top of the septic, and it's when
The
it's
septic
during
is
a
up on
game.
top. Karen, can you share your screen with the design?
Yep, I can. Yeah, hold on 1 second. Oh, yeah, now you're making me do a lot.
And you gotta have the right page pulled up right away.
I think I do have it pulled up. And by the way, thank you for printing that stuff for me.
Oh, no problem. It was a bit of a challenge. 2 sheets really didn't want to print.
Yeah, that was weird. I'm trying to figure out how to, I don't even see it. It's not even coming up on my. Let me see,
You're,
maybe-
aren't you the host?
Yeah, I'm the host and I can see like my different pages, but I don't see that actual page. Hold on a second. Oh, this could be why. Hold on. Let me close that. and Let's try to do this again. There it is. All right, let's try. Try number 2, 350. Here we go. Is this the diagram you want, Chris, or do you want one?
Yeah,
of-
that'll work. So that works perfect. So that small dotted box kind of back behind the, that was my thought to roll it over to. I just thought in between, the 2 fields might get a little busy, but as long as near home plate, I don't think the users really care. They just want to be able to get it in and out.
That
Okay.
dotted area, I believe, is uphill.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's,
it's on a hill a little bit right now based off what they're showing grading wise.
right. So that's on a hill and that's going to be a pollinator garden.
Okay.
So, but, so that's why I'm thinking like, if we,
The other side.
on the
Where
other
does it-
side,
Where does it roll into now, Chris? Doesn't it? roll in-
Kind of over by the scoreboard and the bullpen that they have now. They roll it over there and back it up to the bullpen that they have now, which is way over designed at the moment, by the way.
We didn't
um,
design it, so we can,
No, I know.
yeah.
so.
So I
that-
mean, let me just ask,
Go ahead.
Chris, the entrance to the field, is there any other purpose for, other than this? Other than they, because you asked it to be on the third base. I don't think that that would be the best place for storage, because when, as you see, we're not gonna have any space there. And we can't compromise the path. The path is a huge point for a lot of users.
Yeah.
So the question
only
is,
other
do we
thought
ask for 2 gates?
Oh, yeah, I mean, the gates are, I mean, that's pretty easy, nitty gritty. It's just a user thing that I wanted to get on the radar. Where the batting cages are shown now, they don't need to be that close, so we could even shift those and give them some room there.
Okay, okay,
Because the batting cages are actually the Little League paid, my understanding is Little League paid for the batting cages. So if those got shifted closer to Powell anyway, they might be happy with that. That was a further down comment.
Okay,
Okay.
so, is that, if it rolled out, could it get rolled out and stored near where their storage? Say we had another 10x14 storage shed. Is there a way that we could design that storage shed to accommodate that backstop?
It's pretty big, Karen. It's about 20 feet wide, and it's, you know, so rolling it back and forth, we just have to make sure it's got path to get there.
Okay, okay,
It is a bit of a challenge to move it.
all right, so let me read the next part, because I think my question may come, my comment may come on this. We need a gate on the, oh, sorry, Anna, did you want to see if anybody
yeah,
else?
I just thinking if I don't think we are in the phase that would be asking for like gates, but I think that would be, we should put gates on both fields for access. And my question for Chris was, do we need to go to the field for anything else other than just get this in and out? And I think the answer is yes, because we do want a gate by the third base for the mower to go in.
Yep, and the mower is about almost 8 feet wide, so they need a
Right,
big gate as
so,
well.
so I think it's really, the request is 2 gates in either, you know, on both first and third base. And I think that should be replicated for the softball.
Well, you also got to think about if somebody injuries and stuff too.
Oh,
If-
Yeah,
yes.
something big
If you
enough for
need
an
to,
ambulance.
if you need to get an ambulance or something out there to get somebody off the field.
Yeah, so we probably even need a gate on the outfield.
It's
yeah.
strange equipment that needs to be used to
I
repair.
love having firefighters here.
I was gonna make that comment too, because my kid would be the one that would need the ambulance, but the way my life works. So I would say, my gut says that some of these smaller details on like locations and sizes of gates probably comes in the next phase, but I think this is good to, you know, to be noting with feedback to them. But I do think multiple access ways to that field is important.
Right.
Not just a single access that's, you know, 5 feet wide. I think it does need to be wide enough for a vehicle.
I
Agreed.
agree 100%, Karen, and some of these comments are probably for the next phase, but they came into my mind, I didn't want to forget.
That's a good thing.
Perfect. Any other comment about this one item in particular, access and where things are being kept?
No, I'm good.
And I think
Okay.
it's the same thing that the next one Chris has noted is a storage spot for the stone dust. I think it's the same thing. I think if we, you know that's a need, we're gonna be able to find a spot too.
Yeah, and I think maybe behind the storage building might work for that as well, kind of out of sight, because it's not the prettiest thing to have a pile of dirt.
It just usually invites kids to play on it too, and we don't really.
I have a question about that, if that's okay. And my first question was, you know, does the softball also needs access to that? And then my
Yes, they'd have
follow-up
the same
question,
material.
and my follow-up question on that is, does Powell Field also need some kind of storage for that, for their stuff?
Yes, softball will certainly need it, and those two could share one because they'll have the same newer mix because the stone dust isn't great for the fields.
Mhm.
Powell Field certainly could use a similar small one down there because they're still stone dust.
Okay.
Random question on that, Chris. Is that an easy switch over from the stone dust to whatever this new old stone dust to new stone dust? Like, how difficult would it be to convert Powell Field to the similar sort of surface as the other two fields?
I don't think it would be that bad. You really only need to scrape out a couple inches of it. And I call it stone. What they have now is true stone dust. The newer mixes they use, they call it, an infield mix. And I'm sure Wola can get a spec for us, but it's a mix of it's almost clay and stone dust and a couple other things. But for Powell Field, we'd have to scrape out probably 2 inches of it and then just put new stuff back.
Does
So
the new stuff help with drainage? So
it'll probably drain a little better, and it also doesn't grow weeds as much. So it's less maintenance for us at the beginning and end of season.
gotcha. Okay.
Okay, any other comment? Okay, next item, please.
Sorry, I couldn't get to my mute button. I'm sorry. I was trying to get my mute button.
Okay,
I still have I might be in a minority, but I still have that in the back of my mind. I'll keep talking about that turf option as well, which would alleviate a stone dust storage place.
no,
I
I
won't
don't
fight
think
you there.
that's.
Like that field in Malden. I just get that's in the back of my mind. It was shared with me, and I just kind of keep thinking about it, and I just want to keep it on the radar. And
Okay.
I know there's some additional cost and so forth associated with turf, but
So are
we're
you,
talking about gates. You could plow a field. You could play a lot earlier. You could. I think there's some potential.
so
there
Chris,
for that.
are you talking about turf, the entire field or just infield?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
Chris, just a little data point for you. I believe it's Auburn has turf on the infield only, and then
They do.
regular grass in the outfield.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of the
Would it be
transition.
ideal?
I'm just thinking of my, just that open space concept of being able to use it for multi-purpose sort of deal. If you have, if you're drawing over, going from turf in part to grass in part kind of deal or whatever, versus an entire turf transition sort of deal. It's a little bit smoother, but
It would certainly save me on mowing costs too.
yeah, I think in the long run, there's definitely, it'll pay for it. I would suspect it would pay for itself in the long run, but
The thing is, though,
Fair
is
enough.
then you need to have the money, for in 10 years or whatever, when the turf needs to be replaced.
yep.
The
It's a different
maintenance
turf than
is there. It
softball
just
turf or
depends on
soccer
how
turf
it-
too. It's different. It's a different kind of turf. The baseball and softball turf it is a little bit different than football and
track.
soccer and so forth.
So it would just sort of last indefinitely without big maintenance.
I think it needs some maintenance. I don't know what the maintenance costs
'Cause,
are. We'd have to
sometimes
kinda
I think
figure that out.
all you do is kick the can and then you save on maintenance, more immediate maintenance. And then down the line, you're looking at something that requires a large sum of money. So I would just want to make sure that if we do look at that at all, that we are sure that if there would be something down the line that
Oh,
would be
100%.
very costly, that we have a funding source for that. So we don't at some point end up with something that's not
Yeah,
usable,
100%.
which nearly
Yeah.
happened.
Right. Absolutely.
So, I don't
I
know.
hadn't seen turf fields before until I went up to my college last summer and was like, oh, this is pretty crazy. And then the Malden thing was brought up to me. And then I actually have a friend whose kids go to Auburn. And so I had heard about their infield turf and so forth as well. So it's just, just something to kind of keep talking about. I'd love to hear what costs might go into it and stuff at some point. So that's all.
Chris, I have Chris Sullivan, I have a question for you. I mean, you're talking about the surface, but the space, I would think is the same. Like, if we're talking about open space that we can use, if it's
Yeah,
turf or
yeah.
grass, like we
But the
can use one
transition
way or the other.
but you have if you look at the Malden field, there's some lines they put on the turf, and it does cross over into the infield sort of deal versus just the outfield. So like your transition, if you were to use it for field hockey or lacrosse or soccer or football or whatever for
Mhm.
practice, like you may be transitioning, if it's just grass, you may be transitioning from grass to infield mix or
Okay.
grass to stone dust. You know,
Okay.
you know, that kind of, versus if it's turf, it's all turf. The color changes, but it's all turf. So your
I-
infield is
Oh, your
brown
infield is
or
also,
whatever.
turf?
Everything is
Yeah,
turf.
it would get rid of
Yeah.
the stone dust.
Everything's gone.
Oh.
It's 100% turf. That whole space would be turf.
Even though the color changed, okay. And
Correct, yeah.
that's, I thought that was turf and dirt.
There can be, I'm saying that it can be. I'm gonna throw a sort of different curveball in here that
Well, thank you.
hopefully say to everybody that this just warrants a further discussion. I actually am concerned about turf fields on young athletes. Not because of the chemicals that are used in the pellets in that turf, but actually it's been proven that artificial turf on knees injuries, like knee injuries, ankle injuries, things like that are 58% higher on artificial turf than on grass. So I think it's, although I think it's an interesting idea, and I've certainly seen them. I know that there's a private field in Northborough that has something like that because my kids practiced on it with there was part baseball field, and then they use the outfield as their soccer field. I just am concerned that about the safety of our youth athletes playing out there on an artificial surface and injuries. So,
Okay,
I think that
so,
was with the older turf stuff. I
It's
don't think it's with
recent.
this, is it recent?
yeah, it's their recent
Okay.
article. So
Oh, okay.
I think it just.
I know what the old turf they used to have was horrible, and what you are saying is absolutely correct. But I hadn't heard that with this new stuff, but it does make sense though.
so I'm gonna make these comments. And I think this might be like, it's gonna probably end up as a homework for us and maybe the next team. I don't think at this phase with where we are with schematic design, that detail is going to be important, because I think what we're doing is really dealing with, you know, where things go and how we're gonna manage the water, make sure we have enough space. But I think I'm gonna make notes about this because I think we'll probably have some homework related to this. And this conversation has been useful to kind of like expand these things, these topics that we have talked about it. I made more notes and it'll give us some lead on what to do next. So, okay. So again, I don't think this will necessarily, the turf or grass will pertain to this phase of schematic, and Chris Ruth always feel comfortable to correct me. So I don't think, but I'm going to keep this as notes for us to explore in the near future. And I will add the notes to Catherine, so it's on the back of her mind.
Yep, I agree 100% on it. We can make the turf decision. That's kind of a last minute. And it's also, that would affect number 8, which is if we do grass, we may need to sod the infield just to make the lines clean and timing of installs. So
Okay.
that's also details that aren't all that important at the moment.
Okay, so that was number 5. Karen, number 6?
You know, again, Chris said they would be further in the details, but the pitcher's mound should have clay bricks under the stone dust where the pitcher's foot lands. So if you could just.
Okay.
make that.
I think that's, but one note that I made, Chris Ruth, was you didn't have any requirements for softball, so that's probably something I need to reach out to them.
Yeah, we should, it's probably similar, although softball pitches differently. So
Yeah,
we should
they
check
don't
with
have a
them just
mound.
to make sure.
Okay, all right. Any other comments about number 6?
No.
7?
7 is the fencing around the field doesn't need to be 8 feet tall down the baselines, but the fence does need the yellow protection on top of it at all locations. Backstop doesn't need to be up high.
Yeah, if you can't, if a person can't reach it, it's not important. But you know, if someone jumping over the fence and reaching, I have 10 stitches on the inside of my arm to prove it from when I was in Little League.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
good.
no, I would assume that it's probably standard to have the yellow on the top.
We have it at the softball field now,
Right,
so it's the same stuff.
yeah, and we have it around Powell Field too.
Okay. All right, next one. Karen, number 8.
8 is sod on the infield.
Okay. And I think I don't disagree.
Yep.
I think it will probably be defined on the next phase.
Yep.
But I do appreciate these comments. We probably need to have comments that we are just adding and sorting by phases. And I think
Yes.
that you wrote it out. Okay.
This one I feel like might be a phase now because it requires plumbing. We need to have water run out to one of the dugouts with a spigot. In between games, the teams wet down the baselines to knock down dust. They currently bring water from home and fill watering cans to do this. We could also have a hand hole in the field with a water connection. The hand hole is fine, but I think it might be a good idea to have water, just a spigot coming into all, if we can, into at least one dugout on the softball field and the baseball fields. One for obviously what Chris said, and sometimes I think just having access to water for even something as simple as an injury would be beneficial.
Yeah.
Actually,
agreed.
water bubblers too.
Yeah, that'd be an idea too.
Out in the weather or
We would just have to
like
winterize it like the irrigation system.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we could put in, what might be nice is, and this is details down the road, is a water spigot with even a bubbler / water bottle fill.
Definitely in the pavilion.
Yes. definitely.
Now, I like that, and I think we should look into what would be the extra infrastructure to bring that to Powell Field. Because if we're doing all this construction, and and we just need to bring the infrastructure to Powell Field to have the same benefit of water, I think so.
Or even get something closer to them.
Definitely,
So
yeah.
actually, Powell Field on the third base side does have a hose connection right now.
Oh, it does?
And I actually, yep, it is a one right up on the fence near the dugout.
Okay.
And I actually got a map that I need to put some notes on so it's understandable from Montechusett Sprinkler, showing some of the routing and some of the zones. Because right now, Powell Field Snack Shack is fed from the old loop from the bathroom, but the irrigation for the field is fed underneath the 90-foot diamond with a shut off under the pile of logs next to the tree. So we will have to look at refeeding those at some point.
Yeah, so I think it would make sense to bring a fresh infrastructure that's sustainable to Powell. Okay, I added that. Any other comments about this one item?
Nope.
Okay, all right, go for it, Karen.
We should run power to each dugout that would be used to plug in their pitching machines. And right now they're running multiple extension cords, which is a safety concern. I'm just trying to look at the map again. Chris, would centrally located, if we couldn't get it to both, I mean, I would think if we could get it to one, we'd be able to both.
I think one would be fine. It's just, and I know OSHA doesn't technically apply here, but if you get caught on a job site with 2 extension cords plugged into each other, you're going home with probably a $5,000 to $10,000 fine. So if they think it's that big of a deal, we should be
but we
trying to
should
get some power close.
we should bring again, we should have the same infrastructure on all the fields. So build a softball with the same standards and trying to the best of to the best of our abilities without ripping a field, bring the same infrastructure to Powell Field.
Yes. I don't know if Powell uses the pitching machine, but I know the high school and softball both definitely have a pitching machine. But we should also be prepared for the future as well. So.
Okay. And if we're ripping things and having infrastructure distributed all over the park, why not?
Yep.
That would be the time. Okay. Any other comments about this one item? Go ahead.
Power is on the same kind of line as I am with storage. I think, or the more storage, the better. I think the more options we have for power out there, the better off we are as well.
100%.
I just, can always use an extra outlet.
Right. Okay.
The next one was running power to the scoreboards.
My son's enjoying going over there manually scoring some of the baseball games right now. So I don't know.
Well, some of them we do because the softball field is an electric scoreboard.
So is Powell.
And Powell is too.
Yeah. The reason for the comment was the scoreboard they're showing for the 90-foot diamond. They're showing moving the existing one. So my thought was just put power next to it. So if it ever gets upgraded in the future, it's at least there.
Yeah, scoreboard, I think is a memorial for Jason,
Rogers.
Jason Rogers. And I don't think anyone, so I agree with the infrastructure, but I think it would be for now. I 100% agree with the infrastructure, but I think it'll be important since this is, I think it's doable
Yeah.
for us to keep the current.
I
Just
agree
because-
100%.
Okay. Any other comment on that? I think, no. Okay, you go, Karen.
Yeah, just, he's asking to confirm the height of the net that separates the baseball and the softball fields and to show an example of the style of net they had in mind. I'll comment on that first, which is I wholeheartedly agree with that, to fully understand what it would look like. Because I'm not sure the Parks Commission of 5 or 6 years ago fully understood what the net over at the 90-foot was going to end up looking like.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. Any other comment? Nope, okay. So just we know we are halfway through these comments, okay?
Perfect.
All right, keep going, Karen.
Needing bullpens on both sides of the 90-foot diamond so the opposing teams don't have to share a bullpen. And then there needs to be confirmation if the softball field needs one, and that softball has a shorter distance and different style of pitching, and that bullpens also don't need to be 100% fenced in or netted. They just need a 4-foot fence and some kind of backstop for wild throws. Unless you are me practicing my pitching, you might want fully enclosed, including a ceiling. Because I don't know how to throw a ball. So
So we'll put Karen in the batting cage.
yeah, that probably is where I should go.
No, I think that comment is good. That's good. And you're like the requirement for softball pitching and baseball pitching, it's very different. And so you definitely need 2 different ones. It'll be difficult. So, and I think since we have already designated that middle space between both fields as not having a path, we can, use more for that. So, and the batting cage is coming next. Okay. All right. I'm good. Who did we lose?
We
Lost Pat?
Yeah, I guess we lost Pat.
Okay.
It's possible he got called out.
Did he get a call? He might have gotten a call.
Possible.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna text him. All right.
Let's see. We need bullpens on both sides. I just read that, right?
Right.
Do we have a flagpole location, preferably somewhere between the 2 main fields?
Flagpole. So I think the flagpole, well, that's a good question. I don't think we have.
We could
thought
have
about-
multiple too.
Yeah, because I think, the main part of the park is actually by the pavilion.
Oh, that would be a good
Uh,
spot too.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where the flag is gonna go. And as much as we love the flag, I don't think we want to have multiples because that's multiples to maintain, multiples to lower, maybe we can think of a big one so yeah. Any other comments on that for the flagpole?
Is it a memorial that's there in the center of the center field for softball? There's a memorial there, right? It's the flagpole, or is that just a monument below the flag?
That's a
That's-
fantastic question.
I
I
don't
am-
remember, Chris.
I know there's a monument there. I just don't remember if that's for the actual flagpole or not.
I'll flip through my pictures while we're talking and see if I come up with anything, 'cause I did take pictures there.
The only thing I could think of for multiples is if there are, like you have, the Star Spangled Banner is going to be played for, I think, baseball and softball with the orientation, we can fix that. But I don't know if Little League does anything where the flag might be out of view from any of the fields. And maybe not, depending on, I think it'll be a little more open than than it is right now. So it might not be, but just making sure that all the fields have a sight line, I guess, to
That's a good one,
Flag.
Chris.
definitely if we can get away with one, I would support one, but I just want to make sure everyone has a sight line to it.
Okay.
I mean, we could make the thing 100 feet tall and put a monster flag on it.
Which would be cool. I can see it from my house.
Chris, I don't know if the flagpole currently has a memorial, but I know Walla has taken stock of all the memorials that are currently at the park. So we just gotta make sure if they are not the ones doing the next phase, that that information is passed through it. So, okay.
I just let Pat back in, by the way.
Oh, good.
Hopefully he wasn't sitting there for very long.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming back. All right, the next one is the batting cages could be moved to where the bullpen is shown now. They aren't used as much, and my understanding is the cages were purchased by the Little League, so having it closer to Powell Field wouldn't be bad.
Can you share again so we can take a look where they are and talk about it?
Yeah, I need to open it. Hold on. I should have kept it open.
And then Chris also wrote, also, it may be worth exploring larger batting cages that can be rented out and have pitching machines.
That one might be a bit of a pipe dream, but I thought it might be a cool idea.
I would
Well,
100% support that.
That is a space that I thought about it might be when Karen bring up the
Fine.
thing.
Why can't I?
That little piece of lawn across the center field that is just a little bit of open space. That might be a good place for something like that, I think. Chris, what do you think? Chris, Ruth, what do you think of that?
That might not be bad either. It's a little further out, but again, they're not getting used all the time. There's a parking lot over there close. I mean, I really didn't think through the logistics of it. It just thought it might be a cool idea.
Well, so it is a cool idea. So we're building on the idea here. If it's closer to the parking lot, it will allow for more easy view from the street. And I actually
Mhm.
like that. And if you're practicing batting cage, like being away from where the game is happening is actually not a bad idea too, because it can be, the ball hitting can be a kind of a distracting for people on the field and all. So.
And the only logistics I thought through of it, operationally wise was, the high school, while they have a game or practice going on, it would be reserved for them. Whoever's got the field reserved would have it reserved. And then other times it would be open to the public to, I don't know, coin operated, or we'd have to look into how they operate, but.
Yeah, so that space, so between the outer field and the path, that is that half a bean shape.
Yep.
That would be a place to explore that. So that's an option. What is everyone else's thoughts on it?
I like all of the ideas. I do think that if the Little League, if that's the batting cages that they've put in, that maybe moving it closer to Powell Fields would be a benefit. I would support that. And I'd also support, putting in more so they can be used by the public in a different area. I guess my concern about that bean shape area, Anna, is if we would lose that open space. So if we put in batting cages there, we lose that sort of grassy open space area, right? Or is that all true?
Or is that a what?
It's not all trees in there, right? Isn't it?
No, it's open.
Yeah.
I was also wondering if they might be able to extend, just to go back to changing the shape
Mhm.
of the field, if they might be able to use some of that to extend the center field. Like I'm looking at this overlay and some of the shapes, that Chris put, might bump out into some of that. So if we're asking them to look at that, I don't know if they might use some of the space there.
Okay. That's fair. Okay. We'll throw that there and talk with them. Now,
Can I
as
throw
regarding,
something in here on this, since we have this screen open? To see if it's an option. So the outfield fence, can they do like a removable fence so that during the off season, this whole area would be more of an open space area to be used for other sports? Because that bean shape would extend enough that we may be able to, another sport could, slide in there, even if it was, I know one of the complaints that the soccer program has had in the past is that the primary school doesn't have the best field surface for their players. It is pretty ruddy and beat up. Could they put their, their little kids program over there if we had some sort of fencing that came down? I don't even know if that's, I'm just throwing that out there.
so aside from the fence, that darker gray solid area is the warning track. So if the fencing is removable, depends on what we go for the field. You're going to go from grass or turf to clay. Isn't the warning track usually clay?
I think it would match what the infield would be ideally.
Okay.
It's really so when a player is chasing a fly ball and he's looking up in the sky, they can feel the
Right.
difference on their feet
That's why it's
before they
called warning
run full
track.
speed into a fence.
Right. Okay. What I'll do is I can throw all those comments there for Wola regarding this area, including what you just mentioned. And I'll ask her to give us the length of that space, Karen.
Okay.
Okay.
Karen, I think it's a good idea. Logistically, I would love to see if someone's done it before.
Yeah, I have I think I've tried looking in the past and I couldn't find anything. I know that a few years back when we were hiring a rec director, she actually had one of their fields, and I want to say it was at Crash's Field in Princeton, but I could be wrong. They had some sort of like mobile situation going on, and I should probably just drive out there and look. But it's just, it's something that's come up in my head a few times of like, how do you get the most out of the space that we have to accommodate the most number of people, or in this case, youth athletes. But I've never seen it, but I live
Yeah.
in
Well,
town.
Karen, maybe that's what to do for you to investigate if there's something, because that fence at that spot is not very high. So, so I can see a fence that's not very high because a problem of moving fence, opening a gate or not, it becomes the weight of the fence. But since that one is short, there might be a situation where, it's on the warning
I'm just
track.
thinking like we have a pool, right? So our pool, and we are by law required to have a fence. Well, the fence that we have, which meets code, is actually one that comes down. So we can, when we're out there using the pool, we can take it down, and then when we're done at the night, we put it back up again. That's sort of what I didn't know if they had that available as a commercial application. They may not, and maybe a situation where maybe it's just not even a good idea because the kids will come and take it down and relocate it to their high school English teacher's house and barricade her in her house. I don't know, it's just a random idea that I had.
Yeah, okay,
So-
maybe you
Sounds like
can,
Karen might be planning a senior prank here.
I might be. I got some
like
good
the idea,
ideas.
Karen.
Got some good ideas.
I
I would
really like
support
the
it.
idea, Karen. Let us know what you find out, okay?
Okay, great, thanks. All
All
right.
right, next
stop
item, why
here
don't you just leave it up? Because we keep
Because
asking.
because my internet is so slow today that going back and forth is. Bullpens, did I already say this one? Bullpens.
Yeah, I
on
think
both-
we're on 16 now.
16, okay. We need some kind of guardrail to separate the parking area from the walking paths to keep vehicles out. And we would need access for emergency and just vehicles through a gate. Let's necessarily disagree with it. I don't know what aesthetically it would look like to have, fencing that down, but I do think up near like the playground area for sure, it would be beneficial to have some sort of fence that divides that area from the parking so that we don't have people driving into it.
I don't,
Yeah, I was
I mean,
thinking boulders or bollards or guardrail. I don't know.
Well, they,
Something.
you could do like a, the wooden guardrails.
That would look
actually
nice out
wouldn't be that bad. And I've seen that before at different parks and stuff.
Just to, save a repeat of someone getting out on the Powell field in a truck,
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
Okay.
The next one.
17.
Dumpster enclosure should be shifted north to have better geometry for the trucks coming to empty the dumpster. The current location will be difficult to get a truck in and out.
Says the facilities guy.
So if you're looking at the circle where the traffic kind of turns around, if you shifted that just a little bit so a truck could make a straight line pulling in, because right now if he tried to get into where they're showing it, he's blocking both lanes of traffic to do it.
Yeah, I was gonna pull that picture up again. Let me see if I can. I have like no bandwidth tonight. It's terrible. Like everything takes so long to load. Excuse me. Yeah, it doesn't even, let's see. Yeah, I got nothing because it's just not.
Yeah,
nothing
that's,
And on my, it's taking forever to load anything. It does, what Chris is saying, when you look at it, does make sense. The question in my head is how it can be shifted. And if part of the reason, because I would assume, they had made sure in there that they could get fire equipment in there, fire truck, ambulance, that sort of thing. It would surprise me if they didn't take into consideration getting a trash truck in there to empty those. And I'm wondering if maybe there was a reason why they have it positioned, but it would be a good question to ask them to see if it can be done in any other way.
Yeah, my other thought was to shift it to further down where the opening, the right-hand turn into the parking lot would be, but then it's just further people are carrying trash.
Right.
So,
Right.
and they have what it's called turning templates, Karen, they put in CAD in it.
Yeah.
So as long as they check it with that and it seems like it'll work, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to make sure. I unfortunately don't have the software to scale at the moment. I'm waiting for it to get installed. So a little tricky when you don't have that.
I know. Yeah. Ready for the next one? Anna?
yeah. If no one no one seems to have anything. Okay, go for it.
We should show the trail to Conrad's on the plan and potentially look at a sidewalk in that area. There will be tons of foot traffic during every game through that area.
That's a great comment because if nothing, we should have at least a crosswalk.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I think
thank you.
having a trail to Conrad's, I don't know. I think there's some nostalgia that we should try to be keeping, even though we're modernizing things, I think that there's still, pieces of Lunenburg that we should be trying to keep, and being able to walk over to Conrad's is probably one of them that would be worth keeping.
We should also ask Conrad's to open before 3 o'clock so I can go for lunch.
That'd be good too. Tell me when you're ready for the next one, Anna.
You're ready. Go for it.
We should explore the permeable paver option for the overflow gravel parking area. At the very least, use pavers to mark the parking spaces. I have a lot on this one.
Oh, please. I'm ready for your notes.
Okay, so I agree with him on all of that. I actually, when Anna delivered some printouts that Ruth made for me, when she delivered those today, I had mentioned it to her again. I think I mentioned it at the last meeting with Wola. I really dislike the idea of having one way into a spot and not an easy egress from that parking location. We need a minimum of 100 parking spots for one of the grants that we're going to apply for. That's what's going to qualify us to apply for this grant. If my math is correct, between Chestnut Street, those park spots over there. And then the, the main entrance parking spots, I think we were at like 120. I would sacrifice some of those spots in order to possibly, even if it's a gravel egress towards the main road, not the main road, into the main entrance, to have an easy exit from that lot. I know that Nick had mentioned last week that they could do something where, there's a couple of spots blocked off and, you can turn around. I just dislike the fact that it's one thing to be backing out of a parking spot. I think it's another thing to get down into an area, you have a line of traffic behind you, find that there's no parking there. Then you're like, what do you do? So you pull into a spot hoping to back up and turn around. And in the meantime, you've got other people behind you that could be impatient. Maybe they've pulled up a little too close for you, or maybe your kids decided they're going to be late for their game. Now they're going to get out of your car. Now they're going through. I just think it creates a chaotic situation. And if we can avoid that, and if it means giving up a few of our parking spots in order to be able to do that, because I know stormwater was an issue too. I'm just wondering if that's something that, they could figure out if they knew we were willing to sacrifice a few parking spots. to
So,
do that.
what is your suggestion? I agree with everything you said. it's not clear what your suggestion is to me. but
Let me get the map up. Let me see.
Okay.
Oh, why is this painful?
I'll just
Karen,
say,
what-
I totally agree. That parking looked like a nightmare waiting to happen.
So Karen, while you're pulling that up, the facilities department agrees 100%. And I was hoping the permeable pavers would give us enough stormwater offset that we may not need that pond at the end. So I think we're all in agreement there that that
Wait.
dead end parking is not going to be fun.
Well, I think
Oh,
even with the permeable
Wait,
paver,
the paver, you're saying the whole parking lot be pavers?
Yeah, so they're pavers with holes in
Oh.
them and you actually plant grass. So it wouldn't be more impermeable space. So that pond at the end is likely taking water from the parking area. So if that water can just infiltrate, they may not need it. It would open up a path for the cars to get out, because Karen's right on that one. If you pull down there and you have a car behind you, it's not going to be fun.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
pull
two
up.
cars trying to come back. Okay, yeah.
So Chris, let me just make sure I understand what you're saying. So is your recommendation for the entire area, that entire parking area, to be permeable pavement?
I think it would be
Pavers.
the pavers, yes. There's actually permeable pavement too, which is a different product. It looks like it's paved, but the water drain's really expensive.
So are you talking, so the permeable pavers would be just, let me put this up, because this is why I am not good at this. I now have so many maps open. Maybe this is why my system's running slow. Okay, you can't see my cursor, can you?
No, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So Chris, this is the overflow here, and this is the
Yes.
spot that they were calling gravel. Are you talking about just making that permeable pavers?
Yes, that whole area, because then it would be, technically it drains a little better than gravel, because gravel
Okay.
will still shed some water. The pavers would have, we'd actually be mowing that parking lot.
Okay, so here's what I was thinking, that you enter the park, you come all the way down, go through here. And yes, we can keep that exit there, but then to come down here, even if we lost some of the parking right in this area and had some sort of exit that connected right here to the main road, and to sort of, I don't know I can't remember the word I'm looking for. Nick's comments last week were, he can't put in any more because of stormwater. This is the maximum sort of space that he thinks that we have. But I guess my question is, if we shortened this a little bit and you take the space the square footage that we shortened and put it over here to connect it in, even if we lost some parking spaces, it just gives better flow. You can exit here. If you end up into the overflow parking, you can exit here. I don't know how many people have gone to the Acton Trader Joe's. That parking lot scares the heck out of me. There was actually a death in that parking lot because somebody backed out and didn't see somebody behind them. But that, like, every time I think of parking, I think of that situation. It's just not an easy parking lot to navigate. And when I look at this, to me, it's not an easy parking lot to navigate. And we're talking kids, we're talking skate parks, we're talking playground, all within that vicinity. I just would like to.
So your suggestion is a second exit point out of the
Yep.
parking. Okay,
Even if it
And if
meant we needed to lose a few parking spaces in order
Okay.
to accommodate that. for
so I think we can do both Chris's comments and your comment. If, does anybody have any add-on or feedback to Karen's comment, second exit point?
I'd support
have a quick-
either, and if we can keep parking spaces with a permeable paver kind of scenario, all the better. I think all along we've said more parking, the better kind of scenario as well. So more power, more storage, more parking. But I think but definitely if we need to sacrifice a couple of spots to have an exit point, then so be it. I would keep that an exit point, not an entrance point. Just-
Yes, exit only would probably limit it to 1 to 2 spaces that we lose only.
Right. Yeah.
So
Okay.
And we went through this, Chris, I don't know if you remember, Chris Sullivan, I don't know if you remember last year. Remember when WOLA presented one of their plans in one of our meetings that I think you and I were at together? Where the Chestnut Street lot, at first, they didn't think they were going to be able to do it as an entrance in and an exit out. They thought it was gonna be like this. And I said, it's gonna bottleneck. And we really pushed back on that, and they were able to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, it's got to be a one-way sort of scenario, and that's what I brought up the other night too, where they had kind of 2 ways going all the way to the top, and I was like, no, like I think the whole thing would be a nightmare of, people trying to, I'm just picturing two, parents driving 2 ways to drop kids off at baseball or softball or whatever, and they're dancing at the top of that circle. I think
Yeah.
everything's got to be one way, and you got to make it easy for people to get out of there.
But I think this is a one-way going all the way up and around, and then when you come down here, I think this at the exits is where I think is where it should become 2-way. So I agree with you on that, Chris.
All right, I'll make those notes.
Can we all have
Like-
different names between Colleen Shapiro and Chris Sullivan, Chris Ruth and Chris Sullivan?
No, let's just keep moving. Or number 20, come on.
Doesn't my thing say Sully? I think it says Sully.
No, I changed you.
Okay, come on. Karen, number,
I'm going 20. We should look at lit bollards along the walking path between the 2 parking areas. An affirmative on my side.
okay.
So if you've ever seen, if you've ever been to the Hannafords in Leominster where Bob's in Singapore is, I installed a bunch there and they don't throw a whole lot of light. But if there's a game in the fall that's dusk type of thing, it gives you enough light for someone walking from one parking area to the other.
And all those things can be timed, right?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
They could be photo cell, they could be timer, all kinds of options.
Okay. I don't have any issues with that. Okay. All right,
Um,
21.
Electrical infrastructure for future field lights. I think if we're digging stuff up, we should put in as much of the, what we need to put power over someplace in the future, that we can.
Agreed. Okay. Any other discussion? No? Okay.
100%.
Awesome. Love that discussion. Karen?
Uh, We should explore the ability to have power and data at several locations around the park for security cameras.
Yeah.
100%.
100%.
Just so folks know, I have not met with Chief Gamble yet because he is out of the office.
Let's
till-
get to 23 and then we'll talk about that.
Do you want me to bring up what he's thinking? Do you want me to ask him what his thoughts are on security camera locations, or at least plant the seed that he should just start thinking about it?
I would think so, yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
Now we can go to the next one. I'm comfortable going to the next one now. We should explore we had that one. We should look at connecting the walkway path from Powell Field and the pickleball courts heading toward the dock.
Can you bring that up, the map, if you have it easy?
Yep, here
We
we go.
should.
So
Okay.
right where your cursor is, Karen, from there, connecting over to your right. I just thought it might be good to be able to connect that path to that side of the park.
Right over
Oh,
here.
yeah. Because that's where they have their bleachers.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking that the walking path all takes you back to the dog park right now, instead of nothing brings you back to this side of the park.
So I think that's because this is,
Wetland,
Oh, it is pretty steep hill there, true, yeah.
oh,
yeah,
and I think it's.
So that might be why they did it.
yeah. Okay,
That's roughly where the, isn't that where the bunker sort of,
now the bunker is,
little to the right more? Isn't the bunker a little to
It's
the right?
The
Oh.
bunker is up where Karen's mouse is
Oh,
right
it's
now.
up further.
Top of the screen.
I'm
Bunker
missing
is
my, yeah,
right-
my orientation's off.
Right
Never
there,
mind.
yeah.
Yeah. But I do like, if there was a way to do that, I like what you're saying though, Chris. I think if there, because it does all force you to, the north side of the park. So if there was in some way to figure out a path, I would certainly support that.
so Chris, I'm a little confused about what you said in your comment. You said we should be connecting the walking path from between Paul Field and pickleball.
Yeah, so right where her mouse is there, I was thinking just connect that like straight line right hand over to,
Down
Uh,
by the nature walking path?
yeah, the nature walking path.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And
yeah,
it's
I'm
not
not
on my
sure.
comments here, but obviously I still think we should explore the cave. There should be discussions about that, but that's a whole other issue, so.
Right. Did you hear what Catherine said during the meeting? I don't know if you were still there.
I don't know if I heard her comments on that one.
So I asked her about it, where we were, and she said that we don't know where we're gonna land with the
Oh, yeah, the
grading
grading.
at their location yet. And once they know where they're gonna land with the grading, they'll come up with suggestions. But right
Okay,
now,
perfect.
and it will be, at a minimum, she will look to be saving the stonework that's there.
Works for me.
Okay. Any other general thoughts or questions for Chris? From the commissioners? No. Okay. Chris, Ruth, we probably gonna talk a little bit about more. I do not believe that any of us did a 23 point or more comments about this project. You're welcome to stay.
If you think you need me, if you gave me more time, the list would be longer, but we also have the 100% schematic phase, so I can catch stuff there as well.
Okay. All right. So now to the commissioners, do we have any other comments, questions, feedback for WOLA from what we know, what we heard? And I'm gonna bring up lights next. So then we can, but outside the lights, do any of the commissioners have any feedback?
I
about
think
the
we're
design?
throwing a lot back at them and I'd love to see what they come up with, and
Okay.
then I think that might raise more questions perhaps, but
Okay.
I think there's a lot going on that we've raised, and that might address a lot of the questions we've had so far, but
Okay.
also raise other questions.
Right. Which, when we think about all these phases, it kind of, gives us the time to explore all these different paths and ways of doing things. So I actually appreciate all this long, lengthy process. Okay, Pat, do you have any questions, comments, concern outside what has already been discussed?
No, not at this time. I missed the presentation last week, so
Oh.
I have to
Oh,
go
I'm
over
sorry.
and look at everything, so.
Okay. Colleen, anything else outside the new?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Karen, not lights.
No, and I do have a comment, but I'm gonna save it to the very end.
Okay, it's not, okay.
It's not something that needs to go back on feedback on this.
Okay, all right. I think Chris's comments were pretty extensive. Thank you, Chris, for putting the time to put this together. I think the add-ons, it kind of gave us the opportunity to have this broader discussion about specifics, which otherwise we wouldn't have had to, definitely. So it was very helpful. So with that, I want to move on to lights discussion and kind of create a plan on how we're going to get the feedback to WOLA so that we don't have to meet again. And my thought was we can maybe have a quick discussion about what we thought about lights, and then have a reply to WOLA from the commission, And then whatever Karen learns from the chief, she can pass them as feedback from the chief. And they will likely incorporate different parts of the chief's feedback and our feedback. So that way we don't have to meet again to vet the chief's recommendations. Is that a good suggestion?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay. All right, Karen, do you want
Anna,
to?
I'm
Yeah.
gonna jump off, but the facilities department supports as many lights as you're willing to give us. So,
Okay, that's good. Thank you. All right, have a
All
good
right.
night. Thank you, Chris.
you too. Thanks, guys.
All right. Karen, do you have any feedback about the lights? What
I
are
do.
your thoughts?
So my initial thought is that Chief Gamel's gonna sort of say similar to what Chris just said. They'll take as many lights as we're willing to give them, which I have a feeling might be more than the commission is willing to be okay with. So sort of knowing that Chief Gamel would probably want lights everywhere. Let me start with Chestnut Street. I think this is it's such a residential road that even with downward facing lights, I think that it just takes away from that residential atmosphere of Chestnut Street. And I don't want to do anything to compromise the fact that it is residential. And this parking lot, at least to me, is an easy drive through by, any of our police. It's easily visible. It's not down, a dirt road somewhere. It's not, a few thousand feet back like the main parking lot is. I think we'd be okay there without the big lights illuminating the whole parking lot. On the main side, I would at a minimum like to see some lights at least up in where I'm highlighting here with my mouse, up around the turnaround area, especially for somebody that might be coming to pick up, maybe their kids are late or something got out late, just for the visibility. I mean, if we could do lights throughout the whole, if it's not cost prohibitive to do lights in that main parking area, I think that's a worthwhile idea as well. So I'm in support of it here. I think in the main park, I'm not looking per se to have the overhead lights that they have at the turf. I think number one, they're expensive to operate. Number two, I'm not sure that's the feeling that we're going for at this location. So I think if we drop some of the feeds to have them in the future, should a future park commission want to put some overhead lights in, that we can do that as an option. But I don't personally right now, I'm not in a spot where I think we need to have everything illuminated. The only other spot that I could think of that maybe might be an option to have illuminated would be the basketball and the pickleball field courts for some nighttime play. But again, I'm not sure, the bulk of their play ends up happening in the summer months outside, spring and summer. And right now it is 8:23 and we could still play without lights down at that location. So yeah, that's my feedback on the lights.
Yeah. Okay. Colleen, do you have any feedback on lights?
I mean, I think if we're assuming, since there's not going to be lights for the fields, I mean, I'm in favor of running all the infrastructure. If we're not going to have lights on the fields, it seems to me like it's best that this is one of those dawn to dusk sort of parks. In which case, I think we should put in infrastructure for lighting throughout the park wherever possible, because if they did light the fields, then maybe the whole park becomes usable at night or more so, and you want to be safe. But if it's not going to be used at night, I would post dawn to dusk, so people are not down there using the pickleball courts or the basketball courts at night if it's not going to be lit where they would be walking or throughout the park. I think it's just not safe, and it sort of invites trouble, accidents or whatever. So I think if it's going to be a dawn to dusk kind of thing, I agree with Karen about, we don't need the lights on Chestnut Street because it's right on the side of the road. It's visible. And lights in that main parking area would be sufficient. And, I think most of I live right across from Turkey Hill. The lights are not on all night over there. There's only like, I don't know, it's not dark enough to Karen's point yet. They're not on yet. I can't see them. But there's only like 6 street lights or something in that whole parking lot. And they go off at like 11. So like the school campus is not lit all night. And much of it isn't visible from the road. So I don't think it needs lighting all the time, unless at some point it becomes, you know, it will be used at night with lights.
Pat, you being our fire person, what is your thoughts about light safety and all of that?
I think if, like we said, if we're not gonna light the fields, I don't think we should definitely post dusk to dawn. Or yeah, dusk to dawn to dusk. Yeah. And I'm definitely on the, I got a feeling we probably get a lot of complaints from the Chestnut residents if we overlit that side of it also. But yeah, I agree with what Karen has said wholeheartedly.
Chris Sullivan?
Yeah, I was gonna point the last bit, the Chestnut side for sure. It's a raised parking lot. It's right on the road. So I mean, that's where my light comment was last meeting. It doesn't need any lights up there. I could see maybe some low light along the path, where there's a stone wall, you know, or it's, you know, the pathway is down from that parking lot. Maybe some low light on the backside of that, you know, wall, just to get back up to the lot. But if we have a dawn to dusk sort of policy, which I think support, where we wouldn't be lighting the ball fields up, then might not be necessary there. You know, I think as much lighting as we can do on the other parking lot, I think is probably good. Again, to Colleen's point, there's not a lot of lights in the Turkey Hill parking lot, and the few light poles that are there do a good job of lighting that entire parking lot up. In the dead of winter, when I'm coming out of basketball practice, there's no issue seeing anything. The only other light question, we're putting a couple overlooks down on the water, and do we need emergency lighting down there or anything that way? I guess would be the only question. Someone that walking that path and they decide to go in there against the dawn to dusk policy, and you know, someone slips in the water or whatever, do we need some lighting sort of infrastructure that far down the path there? But I certainly would support installing all the infrastructure. You know, if we were to, you know, the only other thing with the lighting in the park in an evening sort of scenario, if we were to, you know, conduct evening events, you know, that's where the lighting comes into play, right? So if we did a summer movie night in Marshall Park, or we did, you know, any sort of activity that would be, you know, at night, that's where the lighting would come into play. Like I grew up in a bigger town. I grew up in Danvers, and the fireworks were at Plains Park in Danvers, and so all the fields were lit up, and then the fireworks go off and they shut all the lights down, and then when people are leaving, they turn all the lights back on so people can see to leave. So just a visibility standpoint, if we decided to do night events at the park, you know, which wouldn't be a regular occurrence, but that's the only place where I could see, you know, some lighting being important. From a security standpoint, Karen, if you want to ask him about emergency call boxes too, I would maybe ask what his impression is or what his opinion is on emergency call boxes. Just thinking of people walking on the paths. If that's something he feels we should be looking at, to go along with the lighting and security and so forth.
Yeah, I'll put it on my list.
Okay. So my thoughts are, along with everyone's, I'll add, I also don't think we need lighting down by the Highland. There is actually a light post across, and they're proposing parallel park there. And that area is actually well lit. So for that, like when I go there at night, there is a light there. The caveats that I see is, I think that because there's no visibility of that second half of the parking lot off of Mass Ave, I almost feel like lighting should on that whereas the last 3, 5, I think those might need to be lit all night. It's far away from the house that's on Mass Ave that I don't think you'll get to them, and there will be like a nice thick canopy of trees that I don't think it will be affect them. But I do see that being a problem because I don't know. I think it'll be up for the chief because, like Colin said, the parking lot of the high school is not lit. So that's the only place that I think we should have, lights posts and so. Now, taking on what Chris Sullivan said, if we find that we can have some lights installed on this first phase, like along the paths, on the parking lots, on this one parking lot, the whole place, it would open up the use for the park right away. So I think as we get to the next phase, I would be curious to get some cost estimates for lighting the paths and in the parking lot on demand, where it's not being lit every night. It would just be lit for special events, because it would open up for a lot of things, or the use for the park. So that would be where I would differentiate a little bit, is let's look at the cost of the paths and the parking lot to have installed right away, and see if it's worth it. And if that's, then we start planning some summer events, which it could be fun. And I can see also, like, the Boy Scouts wanted to do a campaign. I don't know. I mean, I'm having ideas, but so that's the only thing. So, but I think we all agree that we wanted the infrastructure on everything. And the next phase would be when we get more solid costs and we can explore if it's worth something we want to do it or not. So I think we're all on the same page. We can make a decision about what goes where, when, on the next phase. Okay, so are we comfortable passing on this message for WOLA, and whatever Karen gets from the chief, she'll pass it on as an independent, and we don't have to, because it'll be coming from the chief and we don't have to vet the chief's feedback. It'll be his feedback, period. I don't think, is everybody comfortable with that? I just want to keep the process moving forward.
For sure. Yeah, Karen,
Okay.
just copy us on whatever the feedback is from.
Yeah, so, and what I can do too is I can, I'll sort of go into it very open-ended of like, what would you like to see? To get his feedback there, and then to be able to say to him, this is what we were thinking and here's the reasons why, and see if, if there's any concerns that pop up in his head. And yeah, absolutely, just I can pass them on to Catherine, and then I can CC everybody on it so they can see that, because it would be feedback from him, not from me. So
Okay.
that would be fine.
Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Chris's notes. I'm going to add what we talked about it. And I'll probably, just to facilitate their organization, I'll probably break it up onto things that I think are relevant now and things that I think are going to be relevant on the next phase. But if there is anything you need to consider, these are things we're thinking about it, and let her deal with that. But I was just going to break it up because I know certain things are not relevant in this phase, but she might want to read it
Right.
now. Okay. All right. And with that, that's our agenda. Does anybody have any, we can do public comment. Who did we lose? Did we lose anyone? Oh, no, we didn't. It was.
So it's sort of,
Ruth.
it's more of a committee comment. I guess it's related to this project, but so two things, because the summer's coming and I know we're all most of us will travel. You know, look around the parks that you go past and like make an attempt to go into them and see what they have. You know, we went up to Montreal last weekend. They're very park heavy. It's fabulous up there with the number of parks they have. I'd like to have their parks budget. But we also spent some time in Burlington, and one of the really cool things around the Burlington waterfront, and I sent a picture to Anna, you know, they had these really cool swings. They probably had 7 or 8 of them that, you know, people could just like a park bench, it's just a bench that's a swing. You know, that might be really cool to, as we go into, you know, some of the later phases and picking the details, to have some of that in the back of our mind of, you know, being able to say, hey, I saw this might work good at the Pocket Park over off of Highland, or, you know, wherever. My next one is actually more of a plea of hoping people can put their some research into work this summer, especially as they go by parks. This park at Marshall is going to have a playground. You've probably heard me say it before. ADA is wonderful in that it gives the minimum basic access that people with disabilities need. I would love to see our playground be more than that. And somebody from town recently put out a request to her friends on Facebook. She has a daughter that has a physical disability, for lack of a better word, and that's to find where all the inclusive playgrounds were in Massachusetts. Her list, basically none. The closest she could get was a playground in Westford, and I am going to try to figure out where that playground is and go visit it. It would be amazing if we could have a playground that is, I'm going to use the phrase that Colorado Springs, Colorado uses on their description, a universally accessible playground. Panorama Park in Colorado Springs has a universally accessible playground. If you actually do a Google search for Panorama Park, they will show you what it is. To be able to do something like that in our community, I think would be amazing. I think every child would be able to, you know, utilize that park regardless of their disability. And to top what our ADA minimum requirements would be, I think to set that benchmark for at least central Massachusetts, where clearly there's a need, I think it would be awesome. So if people see a park that they think fits that criteria, if they could send it my way so I can look into it. If they have time and want to do research on their own, it would just be nice to start getting prepared for some of these next phases as we move through the summer months and we're all outside doing more and, you know, visiting different locations. So
I was under the impression that was the park we were doing. That was the only assumption that I made. Just
good.
so I don't, you know, it's so the fact that it was an option to not do that, I think is more surprising to me, but
yeah.
But yeah, I think if we're going to do it, I think we do it the right way and,
Yeah.
you know, be inclusive. So.
And that panorama, I think we should maybe have a field trip to Colorado Springs, because just looking at the videos of it, I look at it and then I send it to my friend Emily. I'm like, look at this playground. She's like, I know, I've heard a lot about it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we're that small community that sets a standard that every community should reach for. And if we can do it, I can't imagine the costs of it are that much more extreme than, you know, any other playground we put in.
And we're going to file for a grant. So, you know,
Yeah.
I think we need to. Now, I am with Chris Sullivan, where that has been my assumption that we're making an inclusive playground, period. There is no way. I never imagined not that. So.
Cool.
I thought the same thing. I mean, we have 3 other playgrounds already. Like, why wouldn't we?
So they're
I
not.
love us.
Yeah, and I know we have all these playgrounds, right? They need to be more. They need to be.
No, but that's what I'm saying. We already have 3 typical playgrounds, right?
Yeah,
Why
exactly.
wouldn't we make this, like, you know, I just assumed that was what was happening too. You know, coming in at this stage, I just assumed that was what was happening. So I'm 100% in favor of that.
Cool.
Perfect.
Awesome. That makes music to my ears.
That's awesome. Pat, do you have any board comment?
No.
Any other board comment? I know we all replied to Karen. No, okay. Any public comment from the public?
No. When are we meeting again?
Well, you said no, but we have a public person and we have public in the meeting.
All right.
So-
Dave, do you have anything you want to add? I'll ask you. I
Okay.
don't see any hands. Probably-
So next meeting, I think we can go, Walla is due to give us the final report, the 100% schematic. I think it is the third, so it's going to be between the 14th or the 21st. Can I get more or less everybody's availability for the 14th, 21st, and 28th? Because if they give me options, normally our meeting would have been on the 21st.
I'm available the 14th and the 28th. I am absolutely not available. The 21st.
14, okay, so Karen, 14, maybe 21st, not 28, okay?
No, definitely not the 21st, but I
Not,
not the week of Andrew's wedding.
okay, so not, yes, 14, not 21, maybe 28,
I should be available the 28th.
okay, all right. All right, Colleen,
I am not available the 14th or the 21st, maybe the 28th.
okay. Okay, Pat,
Yeah, I should be all available for all three.
okay. Chris Sullivan,
Right now, my calendar looks fine for all three.
okay, all right. Okay, and I should be available all of them as well. So, so that's good. So if they give me, so it looks like
The
the
28th.
28th is the date that fits the most for all of us. I was, Catherine from Wallach called me today that she is moving to LA. She will be departing, she'll be departing Walla. So this is her last project. I'm very sad about that because I think, I don't know if she's the brains, but she's definitely the face. And it's been great working with her. So I will inform them ahead of time that our preference would be the 28th. And so that she can plan that accordingly so that, and she might say, I don't need to be there because the part that she will do is already done. And it seems that and it could, anyway, so I'm just letting you all know that, but I will inform them of that, our availability. And with that, if no other comment, I take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 8:43 PM.
Have a
Second.
All right, Karen Menard, roll call.
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Chris Sullivan,
Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
and yes for myself, and good night, everyone. Thank you.
Night.
All right. Good night.